She said she was working late. I drove to her office. Her car was at the motel 2 blocks away. Room 14. I knocked. Her boss answered in a towel. My wife was in the bed behind him. I took a photo, smiled, and said, "This will look great in court." Let me back up. My name is Dominic Carter, and until 3 hours ago, I thought I had a decent marriage. Not perfect. What marriage is? But decent. Ava worked her way up at Ashford and Associates, one of those glass tower law firms downtown where everyone wears suits that cost more than my monthly truck payment. I'm a mechanical engineer at the water treatment plant. Blue collar meets white collar. We made it work for 15 years, or so I thought. The first red flag should have been the overtime. Ava started pulling 12-hour days about 6 months ago, always with the same excuse. Big case, Dom. Bennett needs me to stay late. Bennett Ashford, her boss. Slick hair, expensive cologne, the kind of guy who probably irons his underwear. Tonight, I decided to surprise her. Pick up some Chinese food, swing by her office, maybe convince her to come home early. The parking garage was nearly empty at 7:30. Her silver Accord wasn't in her usual spot. I called her phone, straight to voicemail. That's when I remembered the Sunset Motel. 2 blocks east of her building, the kind of place that rents rooms by the hour and doesn't ask questions. I'd driven past it 1,000 times, never thinking twice about the cars in the lot, until I saw hers. The motel squatted between a pawn shop and a liquor store, its neon sign flickering vacancy in pink letters. Ava's car sat in front of room 14, parked next to a black BMW that screamed lawyer money. I sat in my truck for 5 minutes, engine running, windshield wipers fighting the October drizzle. Part of me wanted to drive away, pretend I'd never seen anything. The other part, the part that remembered our wedding vows, our mortgage payments, our son Jordan's college fund, that part wanted answers. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. The door to room 14 was painted blue, though most of the paint had peeled away. A brass number hung crooked above the peephole. I knocked twice, firm but not aggressive. Footsteps, a chain rattling. The door opened 6 inches, revealing Bennett Ashford in a white towel, his chest still damp with sweat. "What the—" he started, then stopped when he recognized me. His face went pale. Behind him, I could see Ava sitting up in bed, a sheet pulled to her neck. Her hair messed in a way I recognized from 15 years of marriage. Her mouth formed a perfect O of shock. I raised my phone and snapped the photo. The flash illuminated everything. The room number, Bennett's towel, the bed, my wife's face frozen in guilt and terror. "This will look great in court," I said, keeping my voice steady and pleasant, like I was commenting on the weather. Bennett tried to slam the door, but I'd already stepped back. I had what I needed. The drive home took 12 minutes. I used voice-to-text to send the photo to my lawyer, Jim Morrison, not the rock star, just a divorce attorney with the same name and a sense of humor about it. Then I forwarded it to the HR department at Ashford and Associates, along with a brief note about company policy regarding supervisor-employee relationships. I was sitting in my kitchen, eating leftover pizza and reviewing our prenuptial agreement when Ava's car pulled into the driveway. She'd signed that prenup eagerly back when we were young and broke, never imagining she'd be the one caught cheating. The front door opened. Ava called my name, her voice artificially bright. "In here?" I replied. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her work clothes, but looking rumpled. Her lipstick was gone, and she'd tried to fix her hair in the car. "Hey, honey," she said. "Sorry I'm so late. Bennett had me working on depositions until—" "Room 14, I interrupted. She froze. "What?" "That's where you were working on depositions? Room 14 at the Sunset Motel?" The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Dom, I can explain." "No need. The photo explains everything." I showed her my phone screen. She stared at it for a long moment, then sank into the chair across from me. "How long?" I asked. "Dom, please." "How long, Ava?" She buried her face in her hands. 3 months. 3 months. 90 days of lies, of fake overtime, of coming home and kissing me goodnight with his taste still on her lips. "The prenup is very clear about infidelity," I said conversationally. "You forfeit your claim to the house, the savings, everything except your personal belongings and whatever you brought into the marriage." She looked up sharply. "You can't be serious." "I filed the papers an hour ago. You'll be served tomorrow morning." "Dom, we can work through this. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness." 3 months isn't a moment." She started crying then, the kind of dramatic sobs she used in court to sway juries. It might have worked on me once. Not anymore. "Where will I go?" she whispered. "That's not my problem anymore." I stood up and walked to the sink, rinsing my plate with deliberate calm. Behind me, Ava's sobs grew louder. "You're enjoying this," she accused. I turned around. "You know what I enjoyed? 15 years of marriage. I enjoyed believing my wife when she said she was working late. I enjoyed trusting the woman I loved." I dried my hands on a dish towel. "But you're right. I am enjoying this conversation." She wiped her eyes with a tissue from her purse. "What about Jordan? What about our family?" "You should have thought about that before you started working late at the Sunset Motel." My phone buzzed. A text from Jim Morrison. "Got your package. This is solid gold. She doesn't have a leg to stand on." Another buzz. This one from an unknown number. "Mr. Carter, this is Patricia Wong from HR at Ashford and Associates. We need to discuss the materials you sent us. Can you come in tomorrow at 10? I showed both messages to Ava. She read them and started crying again. "Bennett will lose his job," she said. "The firm has a strict policy." "About supervisors having affairs with subordinates?" "Yeah, I figured." "You've ruined everything." "I didn't ruin anything. I just took a picture." She stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. "I'm going to pack some things." "Take whatever you need. The locks get changed tomorrow." She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. "I never knew you could be so cold," she said. "I never knew you could be so careless. Parking right in front of the room? Using his company credit card? Did you think I'd never find out?" She had no answer for that. She went upstairs, and I heard drawers opening and closing, hangers rattling in the closet. I poured myself a glass of bourbon and sat back down at the kitchen table. The prenup was still open in front of me, Ava's signature clear and confident on page 4. She'd been so eager to sign it, so sure of her own fidelity. My phone rang. Bennett Ashford's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Dom, we need to talk," he said without preamble. "No, we don't. This is a misunderstanding." The only misunderstanding was thinking my wife was working late. "Look, I know how this appears. It appears like you were screwing my wife in a cheap motel room." Silence on the other end. "The HR meeting is at 10 tomorrow," I continued. "Don't be late." I hung up. Upstairs, Ava was still packing. I could hear her moving around, opening and closing suitcases. Our bedroom, my bedroom now, was directly above the kitchen. 15 years. That's how long it took to build a life together. Apparently, it takes about 15 minutes to tear it down. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. "Mr. Carter, this is Jordan. I'm at Mike's house. Mom called and said something happened. Are you guys getting divorced?" Jordan. Our 17-year-old son. I'd been so focused on Ava's betrayal that I hadn't thought about how to tell him. "Come home, son. We need to talk." Jordan got home at midnight, his face a mixture of confusion and anger. I was still sitting at the kitchen table, the prenup and divorce papers spread out like battle plans. "Is it true?" he asked without sitting down. "About Mom and her boss?" I looked at my son, tall like me, but with Ava's dark eyes and sharp features. He deserved the truth, not some sanitized version designed to protect his feelings. "Yes." He slumped into the chair Ava had vacated hours earlier. "How do you know for sure?" I showed him the photo, though I cropped it to hide the more intimate details. He stared at the image of Bennett in the towel, the motel room door, the unmistakable evidence of betrayal. "Jesus," he whispered. "Language." "Dad, my mom is cheating on you with her boss at some sleazy motel, and you're worried about my language?" He had a point. "Where is she now?" Jordan asked. "Upstairs, packing?" "And then what? She just leaves." "That's up to her. The house is mine, according to the prenup. She forfeited her claim when she decided to have an affair." Jordan was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Finally, he looked up at me. "Are you okay?" The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on the legal and practical aspects of Ava's betrayal that I hadn't really considered the emotional impact. "I will be." "That's not what I asked." Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. "No," I admitted. "I'm not okay, but I will be." He nodded. "What can I do?" "Nothing. This is between your mother and me. You're not choosing sides." "What if I want to choose sides?" "Then choose your own side. You're 17. In 8 months, you'll be in college anyway." Footsteps on the stairs. Ava appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 suitcases and looking like she'd been crying for hours. "Jordan," she said, her voice breaking, "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way." "How was I supposed to find out?" he asked. "At your wedding to Bennett?" She flinched. It's not like that. What's it like then? Ava looked at me, as if expecting me to intervene. I stayed silent. It's complicated, she said finally. Seems pretty simple to me, Jordan replied. You cheated on Dad. You don't understand the pressures I've been under at work. So you handled the pressure by sleeping with your boss? Jordan, please, no. He stood up. You don't get to make excuses. Dad never cheated on you, and he works just as hard as you do. Ava's face crumpled. She set down her suitcases and tried to hug Jordan, but he stepped back. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. We can talk when you've had time to process this. I've processed it. You chose Bennett over our family. She looked at me again, tears streaming down her face. Say something. Drive carefully, I said. The roads are still wet. She stared at me for another moment, then picked up her suitcases and walked to the front door. It closed behind her with a soft click. Jordan and I sat in silence, listening to her car start and back out of the driveway. I'm proud of you, I told him. For what? For standing up for what's right. He shrugged. She made her choice. We went to bed around 1 a.m. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. 15 years of shared space suddenly felt enormous and empty. At 7, my alarm went off. I showered, dressed in my best suit, the one I wore to Jordan's graduation, and drove downtown for my meeting with HR. Ashford and Associates occupied 3 floors of a glass tower that reflected the morning sun like a mirror. The lobby was all marble and chrome, designed to intimidate. I gave my name to the receptionist, a young woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Mr. Carter, Patricia Wong will see you now. Patricia Wong turned out to be a small, efficient woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her office was on the 20th floor with a view of the river. Thank you for coming in, she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. I've reviewed the materials you sent us. She opened a folder and pulled out a printout of the photo I'd taken. This was taken last night? Around 8:30. And you're certain this is your wife with Mr. Ashford? I'm certain. She made a note on a legal pad. How long have you suspected this relationship? I didn't suspect anything until last night. Ava said she was working late. I went to surprise her at the office and found her car at the motel instead. Had there been any changes in her behavior recently? Working longer hours, being secretive about her phone? I thought about it. She's been staying late more often, maybe the last 3 months, but I trusted her. Patricia nodded sympathetically. Mr. Carter, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Has your wife ever mentioned feeling pressured by Mr. Ashford? Any indication that this relationship might not have been entirely voluntary? The implication hit me like a punch to the gut. You think he coerced her? I have to consider all possibilities. Harassment is a serious concern, especially when there's a power imbalance between supervisor and employee. I pulled out my phone and showed her the text messages I'd discovered on Ava's backup phone, the one she thought I didn't know about. These go back 3 months, I said. Read them and tell me if you think she was being coerced. Patricia read through the messages, her expression growing more stern with each exchange. The texts were explicit, affectionate, and clearly consensual. I see, she said finally. This appears to be a mutual relationship. Very mutual. She closed the folder. Mr. Carter, I want to be transparent with you about our process. We'll be conducting a formal investigation, which means interviewing both parties and reviewing any relevant company records. Mr. Ashford's position as a partner complicates matters, but our policy applies to everyone. What kind of consequences are we talking about? That depends on what the investigation reveals. At minimum, one of them would need to be transferred to eliminate the reporting relationship. At maximum, she paused. Let's just say that using company resources for personal relationships is grounds for termination. I thought about Bennett's BMW in the motel parking lot, the company credit card charges for client entertainment. What if I told you he's been using his corporate card to pay for the motel rooms? Patricia's eyebrows rose. Do you have evidence of that? I pulled out another printout, a screenshot from Bennett's social media posted just last week. He was holding up a receipt from the Sunset Motel, making some joke about working late on a difficult case. The corporate American Express logo was clearly visible. He posted this himself? Posted and deleted within an hour, but I screenshot everything now. She stared at the image. Mr. Carter, this is remarkably foolish behavior. That's one word for it. Patricia made more notes. We'll need copies of everything you have. Photos, text messages, social media posts, anything that documents this relationship. I handed her a flash drive. It's all there. She plugged it into her computer and scrolled through the files. Her expression grew more serious with each document. This is quite comprehensive, she said finally. I'm an engineer. I document everything. Mr. Ashford will be suspended pending investigation, effective immediately. Your wife will be transferred to our satellite office until we determine next steps. What about the divorce proceedings? That's outside our jurisdiction, but I imagine this evidence will be helpful in your case. I stood to leave. Ms. Wong, can I ask you something? Of course. In your experience, how often do these workplace affairs end well for anyone involved? She smiled grimly. In my 15 years of HR work, I've never seen one that didn't leave a trail of destruction. The only variable is how wide that trail gets. I thanked her and took the elevator down to the lobby. As the doors opened, I nearly walked into Bennett Ashford himself, looking haggard and desperate. Dom, he said, grabbing my arm. We need to talk. I looked down at his hand on my sleeve, then back up at his face. Take your hand off me. He released my arm but didn't step back. You don't understand the situation. I understand it perfectly. You've been screwing my wife for 3 months. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. People in the lobby were starting to stare. Bennett noticed and lowered his voice. Look, I know you're angry, but destroying my career won't fix your marriage. My marriage is already destroyed. I'm just making sure everyone knows who destroyed it. Ava loves you. This thing between us, it was just what? Just 3 months of lies? Just using company money to rent motel rooms? Just throwing away 15 years of marriage for some afternoon entertainment? Bennett's face flushed red. You're making this sound sordid. Because it is sordid. You're a married man having an affair with an employee in a cheap motel. How exactly would you describe it? He had no answer for that. Your meeting with HR is in an hour, I told him. Don't be late. I walked away, leaving him standing in the lobby like a man facing his own execution. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings, phone calls, and paperwork. Jim Morrison, my lawyer, was practically giddy about the strength of our case. It's like Christmas morning, he said, spreading the evidence across his conference table. Prenup with an infidelity clause, photographic evidence, company credit card receipts, text messages. Dom, I've been doing divorce law for 20 years, and I've never seen a case this airtight. What's the timeline? With evidence this clear? 90 days, maybe less. She can contest it, but she'd be wasting her money. What about Jordan? He's 17, so the court will consider his preference for custody arrangements. But honestly, with his college plans, it's mostly about summer breaks and holidays. I signed more papers, authorized more investigations, and tried to pretend that dismantling a 15-year marriage was just another engineering project. Identify the problem, analyze the failure points, implement a solution. The problem was, engineering problems don't call you at 2 a.m, crying. Dom, please. Ava's voice was thick with tears and wine. Can we just talk? Face to face? We can talk through our lawyers. I made a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake, but it doesn't have to end everything. I was lying in bed, our bed, now just my bed, staring at the ceiling. It already ended everything. I'll quit the firm. I'll never see Bennett again. We can go to counseling. Ava, stop. I love you. I've always loved you. You have a funny way of showing it. Please don't do this. Don't throw away 15 years over 3 months of stupidity. I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. She was quiet for a moment. I could hear her breathing, could picture her in whatever hotel room or friend's couch she was calling from. I heard about Bennett, she said finally. What about him? He was terminated, effective immediately. I wasn't surprised. Patricia Wong had called that afternoon to update me on the investigation. Bennett's corporate card showed 17 charges at the Sunset Motel over the past 3 months, all coded as client entertainment. The firm's forensic accountant was now reviewing every expense he'd submitted in the past year. And, I said, his wife left him, took the kids and moved back to her mother's house in California. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Are you really? I thought about it. Actually, yes, I am sorry. Sorry for his kids, sorry for his wife. I'm not sorry for him. You used to be a compassionate person. I used to be a lot of things, trusting, for example. Dom? Ava, it's late. I have work tomorrow. So do I. They transferred me to the satellite office in Riverside. It's an hour drive each way. That's not my problem. Everything is falling apart. It was already apart. Now it's just obvious. I hung up and turned off the phone. The next morning, I was drinking coffee in the kitchen when Jordan came downstairs, already dressed for school. "Mom called last night," he said, grabbing a banana from the counter. "I know. She wants to have lunch this weekend, talk things through." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it." He peeled the banana and took a bite. "She sounded pretty messed up." "She made her choices." "I know, but she's still my mom." I looked at my son, almost a man now, but still young enough to hope his parents might work things out. "Jordan, you don't have to choose sides in this. Whatever relationship you have with your mother is between you and her. What if she asks me to talk to you, to convince you to give her another chance? Then you tell her that's not your job." He nodded and headed for the door. "Dad, are you dating anyone?" The question caught me completely off guard. "What? No. Why would you ask that?" "Just wondering. Some of my friends' parents started dating right after they separated. I'm not ready for that. But you might be someday." "Someday, maybe. Why?" He shrugged. "Just want to make sure you don't end up alone." After he left, I sat in the quiet kitchen thinking about that conversation. Dating. The idea seemed surreal. I'd been with Ava since college. I didn't even remember how to be single. My phone rang. Patricia Wong from HR. "Mr. Carter, I wanted to update you on our investigation." "I'm listening." "We've completed our review. Mr. Ashford has been terminated for violation of company policy and misuse of corporate resources. Your wife has been given the option to resign or face disciplinary action." "What did she choose?" "She resigned this morning." So Ava was unemployed now, along with everything else. Part of me felt guilty about that, but a larger part felt like justice was being served. "There's one more thing," Patricia continued. "We discovered that Mr. Ashford had been involved in similar relationships with 2 other female employees over the past 5 years. Your evidence helped us uncover a pattern of behavior." "Other affairs?" "Yes. Both women have since left the firm, but we're reaching out to them as part of our investigation." After hanging up, I realized that Ava hadn't just made a mistake. She'd become part of Bennett's pattern. She was just the latest in a series of conquests, nothing special or unique. That afternoon, I was reviewing water treatment reports when my desk phone rang. "Dom, it's Mike Sullivan." Mike was my neighbor, a retired police officer who'd lived next door for 8 years. We'd shared beers over the fence and helped each other with yard work, but we weren't particularly close. "Hey, Mike, what's up?" "Listen, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I thought you should know. There's been some talk around the neighborhood." "What kind of talk?" "About Ava and her situation. Word gets around in a place like this." Our neighborhood was the kind where everyone knew everyone else's business. Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down worked at the courthouse and had probably seen the divorce filings. Tom Rodriguez across the street was a plumber who'd done work at several law firms downtown. What are people saying? Mostly that they're not surprised. Apparently there were signs. Signs? Ava coming and going at odd hours, that BMW parked in your driveway when you weren't home. My stomach dropped. Bennett was at my house? According to Mrs. Patterson, she saw him there twice last month, middle of the afternoon when you were at work and Jordan was at school. They'd been meeting at my house. In my bed, probably. The violation felt even more personal than the motel room. Mike, thanks for telling me. Sure thing. And Dom, if you need anything, help moving furniture, someone to watch the place when you're out of town, just let me know. I appreciate that. One more thing. That guy Bennett? He drove by the house yesterday, real slow-like. Might want to keep an eye out. After work, I drove home and walked through the house with new eyes. The bedroom Ava and I had shared for 15 years suddenly felt contaminated. I stripped the bed, threw the sheets in the washer with extra detergent, and made a mental note to buy a new mattress. In the master bathroom, I found evidence I'd missed before, an expensive cologne that wasn't mine, tucked behind my shaving cream. Bennett's cologne, left behind like a territorial marker. I threw it in the trash, but the scent lingered. That evening, I was grilling a steak on the back deck when I noticed a black BMW parked across the street. The windows were tinted, but I could make out a figure in the driver's seat. I went inside and called Mike Sullivan. "Mike, it's Dom. That BMW you mentioned, it's parked across the street right now." "I'll be right over." Mike appeared at my back gate 5 minutes later, still wearing his police department t-shirt, even though he'd been retired for 3 years. "Where?" I pointed. The BMW was still there, engine running. Mike walked around to the front of my house, and I saw him approach the driver's side window. There was a brief conversation, then the BMW pulled away quickly. Mike came back shaking his head. "It was him, Bennett. Says he was just driving around, thinking." "Thinking about what?" He didn't say, but I told him this constitutes harassment, and if I see him here again, I'm calling active duty. Thanks, Mike. No problem. Guy's got some nerve, though. Screws your wife, loses his job, then shows up at your house. That night, I installed a security camera system. 4 cameras covering the front yard, backyard, and both sides of the house. If Bennett wanted to keep driving by, I'd have evidence of it. I was testing the camera angles when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. There are things you don't know about Ava. Things that might change how you feel about all this. B. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Whatever Bennett thought he knew, whatever secrets he imagined might save his reputation or win back his wife, I wasn't interested. The unraveling was almost complete. Ava had lost her job, Bennett had lost his career and his family, and I had lost my marriage. The only question now was how much further it would all fall apart. I was about to find out. The security cameras proved their worth within 24 hours. At 3 a.m, motion sensors triggered alerts on my phone. I watched the live feed as Bennett's BMW crept down our street, slowing as it passed my house. He didn't stop, but the message was clear. He wasn't giving up. I saved the footage and forwarded it to Mike Sullivan, along with a copy to my lawyer. If Bennett wanted to play games, I'd document every move. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was having coffee on the front porch when a silver Lexus pulled into my driveway. A woman I didn't recognize got out. Tall, blonde, wearing a business suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Mr. Carter, I'm Rebecca Ashford, Bennett's wife. Ex-wife, technically, since she'd filed for divorce the day after Bennett was fired, but I didn't correct her. Mrs. Ashford, I'm sorry for your situation. She laughed bitterly. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've gotten exactly what you wanted. I gestured to the porch chairs. Would you like to sit down? She hesitated, then nodded. Up close, I could see the strain on her face, dark circles under her eyes, the kind of exhaustion that comes from having your life imploded overnight. I have 2 children, she said without preamble, 8 and 10 years old. They don't understand why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. I'm sorry. Bennett told me about your wife, about their relationship. I waited for her to continue. He also told me some other things about Ava that you might not know. Such as? Rebecca opened her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Bennett kept records. Photos, emails, text messages. Not just from Ava, but from the others. Others? The other women he's had affairs with. Your wife wasn't his first, Mr. Carter. She wasn't even his second. She handed me the envelope. Inside were printouts of emails, text message screenshots, and photos that made my stomach turn. Bennett had documented his conquests like trophies. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand what kind of man destroyed both our marriages, and I want you to know that your wife knew about the others. I looked up sharply. What do you mean? Bennett told her about his previous affairs. He bragged about them. Ava knew she was just the latest in a series, and she didn't care. The papers in my hands suddenly felt heavier. I flipped through them, seeing Ava's name mixed in with others. Sarah from accounting, Jennifer from the paralegal pool, Maria from the client services department. She knew, Rebecca repeated, and she still chose to get involved with him. I set the envelope aside. Why are you telling me this? Because Bennett thinks he can win her back. He thinks if he loses his marriage and his job, maybe she'll leave you and they can start over together. That's not happening. Are you sure? Because he's been calling her, meeting with her, as recently as yesterday. My phone buzzed. A text from Ava. Can we meet tonight? There's something I need to tell you. Rebecca saw me reading the message. That's probably about Bennett's proposal. What proposal? He wants her to move to California with him. Start fresh where nobody knows their history. I stared at the text message, then at Rebecca Ashford's tired face. Why are you really here? I asked. Because I want Bennett to face consequences for what he's done. Real consequences. And I think you're the only person who can make that happen. Heck, the firm already fired him. You're divorcing him. What more consequences do you want? I want him to lose everything, the way I've lost everything. My reputation, my social circle, my children's stability, all gone because of his selfishness. She leaned forward in her chair. But mostly, I want him to be alone. I want Ava to reject him the same way he rejected our marriage vows. I looked at the envelope again. What exactly are you proposing? Show her these documents. Let her see how he talks about his conquests, how he rates them, how he plans to discard them when he gets bored. I pulled out one of the emails. Bennett describing Ava to someone as eager but not particularly creative. Another one rating his various affairs on a scale of 1 to 10. She deserves to know who she's really been involved with, Rebecca said. That evening, I met Ava at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, public enough to prevent a scene. She looked terrible. Weight loss, dark circles, the kind of hollow-eyed exhaustion that comes from weeks of stress and regret. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "What did you want to talk about?" She took a deep breath. "Bennett has asked me to move to California with him." "And?" "I wanted to hear it from you first. Is there any chance, any possibility at all, that we could work things out?" I studied her face, looking for signs of the woman I'd married 15 years ago. She was still there, somewhere underneath the guilt and desperation, but she felt like a stranger. "No," I said simply. Her face crumpled. "Dom, please." "Ava, I have something to show you." I slid Rebecca's envelope across the table. "Bennett's wife gave me this yesterday." She opened it cautiously, then her expression changed as she recognized the contents. "Where did you get this?" "Read it." She flipped through the pages, her face growing paler with each document. When she reached the email where Bennett rated her performance compared to his other affairs, she actually gasped. "He kept records," she whispered, "like trophies. He told me I was different, that he'd never felt this way about anyone. According to these emails, he said the same thing to Sarah, Jennifer, and Maria." She closed the envelope and pushed it back across the table. "I feel sick." "Now you know who you've been defending." "I wasn't defending him. I was trying to save our marriage." "Our marriage ended the first time you met him at that motel?" She started crying then, not the dramatic courtroom tears from before, but quiet, defeated sobs. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked. "That's not my problem anymore. I have no job, no home, no money." "You have your law degree. You can rebuild." "Not here. Not after this scandal." I thought about Bennett's offer, his plan to take her to California and start over. "Maybe a fresh start would be good for you," I said. She looked up hopefully. "You mean you'd consider—" "No, I mean maybe you should take Bennett's offer." Her hope died as quickly as it had appeared. "I don't love him," she said quietly. "But you chose him." "I made a mistake." "You made a series of choices over 3 months. That's not a mistake, Ava. That's a decision." I stood up to leave. "Dom, wait." I turned back. "I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to know. I never stopped loving you." "Maybe not, but you stopped choosing me." I left her sitting in the coffee shop, Rebecca's envelope on the table between her hands. The next morning, my security cameras caught Bennett's BMW in my driveway again. This time, he got out of the car and walked to my front door. I opened it before he could knock. "You're trespassing," I said. "I need 5 minutes." "You need to leave my property." "Ava told me about yesterday, about the envelope." "Good. Then you know she's seen your trophy collection." His face flushed. "Those emails were taken out of context." "What context makes rating your affairs acceptable?" "Look, I know I've made mistakes. You've destroyed 2 marriages, ended multiple careers, and traumatized several families. Those aren't mistakes, Bennett. That's a pattern of behavior. I love her. You love the conquest. Once you get bored, you'll move on to the next woman and add Ava to your collection of stories." "That's not true." I pulled out my phone and showed him the security footage of his late-night drive-bys. "This is harassment. If I see you on my property again, I'm calling the police." "She's not going to California with me," he said suddenly. "I know." "She's not coming back to you either." "I know that too." He stared at me, probably expecting anger or jealousy. Instead, I felt something close to pity. "You lost everything for a woman who doesn't want you," I said. "How does that feel?" He didn't answer. He walked back to his BMW and drove away. I never saw him again. 2 days later, Ava called to tell me she was moving to Portland, Oregon, where her sister lived. She'd found a job with a small family law practice, starting over at the bottom. "I'm not asking for your blessing," she said, "but I wanted you to know." "Good luck, Ava." "Jordan wants to spend Christmas with you." "That's his choice." "Will you tell him I love him?" "You can tell him yourself." She was quiet for a moment. "I know you hate me." "I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. And I don't want to be married to someone I can't trust." "Maybe someday." "Goodbye, Ava." I hung up and deleted her number from my phone. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. I kept the house, the savings, and most of our shared assets, just as the prenup specified. Ava got her personal belongings and a small settlement that would help her get established in Portland. Jordan took the news better than I'd expected. "Are you sad?" he asked. "Yeah," I admitted. "But I'm also relieved." "Me too." "You don't have to choose sides, you know. She's still your mother." "I know, but she's not the same person she used to be." "People change." "Do you think you'll change?" I thought about it. I already have. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was a different man living in the same house. The security cameras had become permanent fixtures, not because I feared Bennett's return. He'd moved to Arizona, according to mutual acquaintances, but because I'd grown to appreciate the sense of control they provided. Jordan was thriving in his senior year, already accepted to 3 colleges with partial scholarships. He video called Ava every Sunday, maintaining a relationship that was cordial but distant. She'd sent Christmas gifts from Portland, expensive items that felt like guilt offerings. "She's doing okay," he told me after one of their calls. Got promoted to junior partner at her new firm. "That's good." "She asked about you." "What did you tell her?" "That you're dating someone." I looked up from the engineering report I was reviewing. "I'm not dating anyone." "I know, but she doesn't need to know that." Smart kid. The truth was, I hadn't even considered dating. The idea of trusting someone new, of making myself vulnerable again, felt impossible. I went to work, came home, helped Jordan with college preparations, and tried to rebuild a life that felt manageable, if not particularly exciting. Then Rebecca Ashford called. "Mr. Carter, I hope you don't mind me reaching out." "Not at all. How are you doing?" "Better. The divorce is final, and the kids are adjusting. We moved back to my hometown in Ohio, near my parents." "That's good to hear." "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For showing Ava those documents. Bennett told me she rejected his California offer after seeing them." "She would have figured out who he really was eventually." "Maybe, but you saved her from wasting more time on him." We talked for a few more minutes about practical matters. She was selling their house. Bennett was working as a contract attorney for a firm that didn't know his history. Their children were seeing a counselor. "There's one more thing," she said before hanging up. "I know this might sound strange, but I think you handled everything with a lot of class. A lot of men would have made things much uglier. I just wanted it to be over." "Well, for what it's worth, I think you're a good man who got dealt a bad hand." After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about her words. A good man who got dealt a bad hand. It wasn't the worst epitaph for a failed marriage. Spring arrived with the kind of weather that makes you believe in second chances. Jordan was busy with senior activities and college visits, spending most weekends away from home. The house felt too big and too quiet. I started taking evening walks around the neighborhood, partly for exercise and partly to get out of my own head. On one of these walks, I ran into Sarah Martinez, who lived 3 streets over. I knew her vaguely. She was divorced, worked as a nurse at the regional hospital, had a teenage daughter about Jordan's age. "Dom, right?" she said, pausing in her own evening jog. "I heard about your divorce. I'm sorry." "Thanks. How are you doing?" "Good. Busy. Emma's a junior this year, so we're starting the college search process." "Jordan's going through the same thing. It's overwhelming." We walked together for a few blocks, talking about kids and colleges and the challenges of single parenting. She was easy to talk to, with a direct manner and a sense of humor that reminded me why I used to enjoy conversations with women. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" I found myself asking as we reached her street. She smiled. "I'd like that." We met the following Saturday at the same coffee shop where I'd last seen Ava. Sarah looked different in civilian clothes, younger, more relaxed, with laugh lines that suggested she'd found reasons to be happy despite whatever had ended her marriage. "So," she said, settling into the booth with her latte, "what's your story?" I gave her the abbreviated version. 15-year marriage, wife's affair with her boss, relatively clean divorce thanks to a well-written prenup. "Ouch," she said. "That's rough." "What about you?" "Married my college boyfriend," had Emma, realized we'd grown into completely different people. No drama, no cheating, just 2 people who stopped being compatible. "That sounds almost civilized." "It was. We're still friends. He comes to Emma's soccer games and school plays. We have dinner together sometimes, the 3 of us." I tried to imagine having dinner with Ava and Jordan, all of us laughing and sharing stories like a normal family. The image wouldn't form. "Do you think that's weird?" Sarah asked. "Being friends with your ex?" "No, I think it's healthy. I just don't think it's possible in my situation." "Too much betrayal?" "Too much everything." We talked for 2 hours, covering everything from our jobs to our kids to our opinions on local politics. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly honest about the challenges of rebuilding a life after divorce. I should probably mention, she said as we prepared to leave, I'm not looking for anything serious. I like my independence too much. That's perfect, I replied. I'm not sure I remember how to be serious about anyone. We started seeing each other casually, dinner once a week, occasional movies, coffee dates when our schedules aligned. It wasn't romance in the traditional sense, more like friendship with the possibility of something more if we both decided we wanted it. Jordan approved. She seems normal, he said after meeting Sarah at a school basketball game. As opposed to? As opposed to crazy or needy or any of the other things I was worried about. You were worried about me dating? I was worried about you not dating. You're not meant to be alone, Dad. Maybe he was right. The evening walks became less solitary when Sarah joined me. The house felt less empty when she came over to cook dinner or help Jordan with his college essays. I started sleeping better, laughing more, feeling like a person instead of just a collection of responsibilities and regrets. 3 months into whatever Sarah and I were calling our relationship, Ava called. I heard you're seeing someone, she said without preamble. Jordan talks to you every week. I'm sure he mentions lots of things. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. Why? Because I want you to be happy. I know that probably sounds selfish, but I need to believe that my mistakes didn't ruin your chance at happiness. I thought about Sarah's laugh, about the way she made coffee in my kitchen like she belonged there, about how natural it felt to have someone to talk to at the end of the day. Yeah, I said. I think I am happy. Good. Her voice was thick with emotion. That's good. Ava, I should let you go. Tell Jordan I'll call him Sunday. She hung up before I could respond. That night, Sarah and I were sitting on my back deck, watching Jordan practice free throws on the basketball hoop I'd installed when he was 12. Penny for your thoughts, she said, just thinking about second chances. What about them? Whether people deserve them? Whether it's possible to really start over? She was quiet for a moment, watching Jordan sink 3 shots in a row. I think some people deserve second chances, she said finally, and I think some situations are too broken to fix. How do you tell the difference? Trust your gut? It usually knows? My gut told me that whatever Ava and I had built over 15 years was irreparable, but it also told me that whatever Sarah and I were building was worth protecting. Jordan made another shot and looked over at us, grinning. Dad, you want to play some one-on-one? I looked at Sarah. You mind? Go ahead. I'll referee. I walked onto the court where I'd taught my son to shoot, where Ava and I had watched him grow from a clumsy kid into a confident young man. The past was still there, woven into every memory, but it no longer felt like a weight I had to carry. Jordan passed me the ball. First to 21? You're on. As we played, Sarah cheering from the sidelines, I realized that this was what moving forward looked like. Not forgetting the past, but refusing to let it define the future. The security cameras captured it all. A father and son playing basketball while a woman who might become something important watched from the deck of a house that was slowly becoming a home again instead of just a place to sleep. Room 14 at the Sunset Motel felt like it belonged to someone else's story now. This was mine.